Welcome to episode 12 of the Pursuit Desk, our adventures in business development, marketing, and sales enablement technology. My name is Jason Noble, and I'm your host. Today, our guest is Kalisha Crawford. She is actually the Director of Marketing and Business Development with Ropers Majeski. The reason that I wanted to share this conversation with her, she has a really diverse background, having worked with, the larger firms, like really large firms, but also having experience both in the smaller and the medium-sized firms. And so because she brings that unique perspective, I really wanted to chat with her about how firms approach very similar problems, firms of different sizes approach these similar problems. And so with that, I wanted to say welcome to the Pursuit Desk, Kalisha.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, one of the reasons that I really wanted to chat with you was just getting some insight into your experience as it relates to you bringing kind of big firm processes and perspectives into the mid-market. And so the first thing that I was really interested in is, why is that valuable to you in your current role, having that, that bigger firm experience?
Sure. I think it's incredibly valuable. The challenges in a mid-sized firm are very different than a large firm on the business development side, probably across the board, but there are always going to be limitations in a mid-sized firm for the number of team members you can have working on something, for the budget that you have for outside consultants, for the buy-in you can get for more sophisticated systems and software and partnerships with new vendors. So I think seeing a large scale multi-business unit global rollout of an experience management system shows you, top to bottom, what can be done, what should be done, what is aspirational, what's realistic, and then you can take that larger scale plan and apply it to the resources that you have in your mid-sized firm, the culture that you're operating in. You can customize it to the decision makers from whom you're going to need buy-in. It also really, I've already thought through a lot of the taxonomies and the nuts and bolts of building out a system. So it's a lot easier for me to pair the need with the solution and not overdo it. One thing that I would caution those working on this kind of project in a mid-sized firm is you can make a perfect wish list, but it's only going to go, you're only going to take it as far as you have the resources and the internal buy-in and the budget to support it. So being able to strategically pare down a really elaborate experience management plan and implementation plan is critical in a mid-sized firm.
Yeah, and a lot of these solutions, they do a lot of different things, right? So whether it's publishing to the web, whether it's doing pitches and proposals, whether it's just the discovery of experience, do you think that the use cases are greater in a larger firm, or do you think that there's still equal value for the medium-sized firm and the large firm for these types of solutions?
That's a great question. I think the value is it's invaluable. You must have a handle on what your experience is in order to effectively market and sell your law firm and your lawyers. I think that one of the challenges in a mid-sized firm is that you really have to be strategic from the beginning. You can't. I think I mentioned aspirations before. You cannot build a plan around people who don't exist, functions that don't exist, budgets that aren't approved. I think that's where you're going to run into problems, and you're going to slow down your implementation. Mid-sized firms have the advantage of being more agile, typically. At least in some respects, the decision-making pool is smaller. Your stakeholders there's fewer of them. Your team is smaller, and so it's a little bit easier to figure out who can do what, from the initial scope. So I think being able to make more agile decisions and changes is helpful. but I would always just caution that you don't want to present an unrealistic plan because it will fail. You will
Hmm.
lose credibility. You will lose the stakeholders that you've asked to really put their weight behind this effort. You really have to be able to deliver. So you're better
Yeah.
off starting small and scaling up. And the second piece for me, when I was considering what kind of system to use, in a large firm, you've got design teams and
Hmm.
tech teams and all kinds of professionals who have, specialized experience in what you're doing. So for me, it was important. I have a very lean team,
Hmm.
a lot, and we analyzed what kind of time we were spending on different projects over a year. And a lot of our time is spent in the actual physical creation of pitch documents. So it was critical for me that our system is able to create the actual documents for us. That basically
Hmm.
takes the place of an FTE for me for
Yeah.
a lot lower cost. So that was
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know in working with you, when you're generating those pitches, like it's, we can generate those things in minutes, right? As opposed to having to, whether it's open in design or, do custom stuff, right? So it's just a huge time saver. And I'm sure that, I mean, just from a stress perspective, like if you get three in on one day or whatever, if you get one at, Friday at 10 a.m., like the level of stress that you feel when it comes in has to be less.
Oh, I mean, if I get three pitches right now doing this manually, if we got three urgent pitches, we are a two-person team currently.
Hmm.
That we would basically have to clear the rest of the day to deal with those.
Yeah.
And then we're going to be having spacing problems when we create the final PDF and all of the difficulty that comes with the manual process. The other piece not to be undercounted is employee satisfaction, like your team's engagement.
Hmm.
I've never worked with a business development professional who said, I love editing these Word documents with PDFs for several hours at a
I
time.
love fighting with bullets. It's my
Yeah,
favorite.
like I love creating a PDF and then having just a random space appear, and that's, fun for me to solve. That's, if you're hiring talented, driven, engaged people, unless you find that real unicorn of a person who says, I just want to be deep in the documents all day,
Yeah.
your team's not going to like doing that. And they're not
Hmm.
going to stick around at a job where the majority of the time is spent wrestling with formatting.
Yeah. Yeah, the value add for business development folks is not in the creation of the document. It's really in, or the beautification of the document. It's really in the content, right? And they're the more time and space that you give them to help craft the exact right description of the work that was being done, position it exactly for that specific pursuit. That's a lot more valuable than, you know, opening this document, copying that stuff, pasting it in here, getting fresh, so that's the value, right?
Absolutely. And when you're on these short turnarounds and you have a lot of just the time is being eaten by manual document creation, exactly like you said, you cannot be thoughtful
Hmm.
without an experienced manager. You can't be specific. You can't call up, similar experience in similar jurisdictions or industries or matters with the same partners or associates or whoever, your team is going to be from the firm side. When you don't have that, they can't be tailored. These are not tailored pitches. They won't really speak directly to the client's need or ask. You're basically creating firm brochures, which is a lot less useful than hearing a client's problem or
Hmm.
concern and being able to drill into the last 10 times you handled something like that successfully, for what kind of clients, with what kind of
Hmm.
outcomes. I mean, you can even get even further into the data and talk about turnaround times, case values,
Hmm.
expenses,
Yeah,
exposure
profitability.
versus,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So totally critical.
So you talked about a little bit about, I guess, maybe calling it like right sizing both your expectations as well as the firm's expectations as well as the project itself. You did make mention that maybe in a larger firm they have a more, I guess they have a deeper bench, if you will. They have more people to focus on different areas. So can you talk a little bit about You did make mention that, hey, we need to make sure that we have pitches go out the door really, really quick and not, focus on formatting. But are there other aspects of, how you chose to engage or not engage with like IT, with finance? Like, can you speak a little bit about, the other teams that you had to engage with to get this going?
Sure. Yeah. So I will say I had a lot of firm support for this once I explained the use case for it.
Yeah.
Um, I have been working really closely with our director of finance because we work together hand in hand on profitability, on rate setting collections,
Hmm.
trying to do some more advanced reporting for our shareholders and the board. So what was really exciting for us is that at the same time we were talking about experience management, we were talking about profitability modeling. So
Hmm.
we were able to make sure that the two solutions that we chose to implement were complementary, that they would allow us to do all of the reporting that we want to do, whether as a combination of the outputs that they were able to give us. We are also working together currently during
Hmm.
implementation to clean up matter intake, matter labeling, tagging in our financial system so that we are getting apples to apples data in both systems.
Hmm.
So, I mean, that's a firm-wide effort, right? That's IT, that's finance, that's my team, that's operations, the administration, office administration sort of folks have to help us understand what do we have now, what's the ideal, what's the
Yep.
realistic, and then we can kind of come to agreement on something that's implementable. So that's
Yeah.
been that's not something that you would necessarily undertake in the normal course of business. It's something that's probably on everyone's list every year, and then we just don't quite get to it, or we don't know
Hmm.
exactly what we should do with it. So this is also a great opportunity to see and set clear parameters about how you're going to collect and tag certain kind of data from the intake.
Yeah, so it really does start at intake, right? So, with our solution, we look at the new business intake system and try to pull in the description that comes in, and maybe some of the, if you're collecting industry information and kind of how it's, what matter type it is and things like that. So it sounds like you're kind of taking a, hey, let's figure out the problem from the very beginning, which starts at new business intake.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if we do that, we will save ourselves a lot of trouble down the road. And really, if you're going to make the investment, it is worthwhile to take the time and the effort
Hmm.
to make sure that what you're starting with is as clean as you can get it. Look,
Yeah.
we can all we'll be realistic. I've got a messy spreadsheet of hundreds of matters
Hmm.
that's what we have for
Yep.
now, and I'm trying to sort through that and curate that. But knowing that I can match that up with what's going into all of our other systems from
Hmm.
the first moment we talk to a client is going to be key, because then when we take reporting from our profitability software, from our experience manager, they're going to be talking about this. They're going to be speaking the same language. We're
Hmm.
going to be able to identify patterns that are actually patterns and not sort of coincidences because our data is mistagged.
Right.
This firm has not historically really drilled down into matter industry, for example. We track client industry, but not necessarily every single matter industry. So nice opportunity for me to start doing that from intake, and put some requirements around the kinds of descriptions we expect partners to give when we open a matter. I mean, there's only so much you can know at the very beginning, but
Hmm.
trying to get those as robust as we can from the start is always a helpful first step for the experience piece.
Yeah, and now that you're in a place where you have a solution in place, while not completely done, but knowing that you have this facility for accessing your experience and slicing it in interesting ways. What are some of the I guess, I don't know if we want to go with the aspirations, but where are you starting to think about how you can leverage this data, whether it's in cross-selling or in other pricing scenarios? Like, where are you wanting to take this?
Sure, so many places. W- you know, One thing it'll help with immediately is for a lot of I am the funnel for the who do we have that does X,
Hmm.
right? And a lot of times that's very specific. The client will call and say, I have a song Beverly Act matter and in this county, and who do you have?
Hmm.
Well, for me to try to find that information now is, I mean, it's impossible. I have to send one of those, sorry for the interruption. Can everybody let
Hmm.
me know if you have? And we really want to be at the place where I really want to enable users to look this up themselves, right? And so
Hmm.
that they can make a first stop there, or call me. I'm happy to always help them figure out who the right person to go to is. But the cross-selling implications are huge because we just this is a place where everyone can go and have access to similar or the same at, with certain limitations for,
Right.
by level of data and client information.
Hmm.
um, we have aspirations for forming more formal client teams. This
Hmm.
will help tremendously in the administration of client teams. um, it's a place where I've got lawyers on both coasts who work on the same clients but in different business lines, and this is a place where they can all go to have access to the latest information and who's
Hmm.
working on what and what's happening with the client. It just is another way for them to keep current. We're going to
Hmm.
make these dashboards and links available to them on their own personal, like we're on our intranet. So
Yep.
they have a one-click link. So this is no mystery around how to find the information. They can look up themselves and see if they know a partner they want to call on a certain matter. So the cross-selling is going to be terrific. It'll also allow me to do reporting by practice group, by matter type, by
Hmm.
judge, by mediator. We're often asked for internal referrals for ADR professionals, judges, mediators. I mean, that is a common question, and it's
Hmm.
really easy to have a list pulled once we've tagged all of those in the experience manager. So I can just pull that, send it to the partner, and say, hey, here's the link to all the matters that we've done, with this mediator in the past 2 years. Here's who's worked on them. Again, that's currently an all firm email that goes out.
Hmm.
So just trying to and by the way, I've been collecting those in my little folder because that'll be something I can go back and map into our database. So
Yep.
that's going to be huge. I think it also, because we are marrying this with the profitability piece,
Hmm.
we're going to use this to price matters, to
Yep.
set rates, and not just set rates, but to have data to back up, to present to clients, even when we're not asking for a rate increase, to say here's a look back, here's a
Yep.
snapshot, here's our successes over the years and year, and here's the kinds of matters we handled, the number of days it took from matter inception to resolution, the exposure you had on all these cases, the recovery amounts, the expense. We'll be able to run some cool formulas on that. So
Hmm.
right now I'm doing that, in Excel by hand,
Right.
and I'm not a mathlete, so I'm really looking forward to having
Yeah. Just kind of
some
tell
board
you.
to, yeah, something that will just at least spit out the clean data for me to um, manipulate and present in ways that help the clients understand the value of our relationship and the
Hmm.
value of the work that we're providing to them.
Yeah, you alluded to the to the work that we're doing together in relation to Iridium, and actually pulling that information into Icon, and really what we're trying to help, at least on the business development side, is really you know give you the financial information that helps you to make, as you mentioned, decisions on pricing, but also for more in the kind of white space reporting, where just being able to understand, um, for this particular client, or maybe even for this particular partner, what are the areas that we can start to focus on? What are the clients? What clients aren't necessarily leveraging our top practice areas, or what are the areas of law that we could sell into that practice area because we have complementary industry or client based experience, right? So I'm really excited about the possibilities, marrying data, financial data, with that experience.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's two sides of the same coin to say we're very experienced in this area or this jurisdiction or both. We have great people who do this, and being able to demonstrate that with historical wins. But then to be able to say, and we know how to price these matters, we know how to work them efficiently, we provide detailed budgets that we
Hmm.
stay on top of and that are typically accurate. I mean, the more data I have, the more accurate our budgeting can be, the better the
Hmm.
pricing can get, the more specific we can get. I mean, the two pieces together allow us to drill down, like who's worked on this client before, who's working with them, or who's approved on their panel sometimes for these very large institutional clients, and what is this person's bandwidth, what's their profitability, how do we fit this team together so that it's responsive and diverse, but also going to be cost efficient for the client.
Hmm.
So that's going to be something that really combines both forces here.
Yeah, and I mean that's obviously the next phase that we're working on right now, and like I said, we're really excited, and I think that partnering with Iridium and yourself, and really bringing this to you, I think is going to be it's going to create a lot of value, and just take the platform to the next level. So I just appreciate your insight, and your leadership on that. I think it's going to be a really nice integration.
Absolutely. It's very exciting for us.
Yeah. So, in thinking about, so you have all of your experience together, just like a couple more things that I wanted to chat with you about, which is as it relates to new hires and partner laterals. So, before having Icon, you know, how do you think you're better positioned now when you bring on new hires, whether those are summer associates, or laterals? Do you feel like you're in a better position to, I guess, cross pollinate or educate them on what it is specifically that the firm is good at?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's two parts. One, on the front end, before you even really start going to the market for new candidates, for associate candidates, or particularly for partner laterals,
Hmm.
we will have so much more data available to us about the practice area, the profitability of that work,
Hmm.
who's working on it now, what their hours look like, what their additional capacity is. You'll be able to much better identify the need the firm has and confirm it, because sometimes partners come to us and say, I need a person
Right.
who does X, Y, and Z. And then when we really drill down, we say, oh, actually, this associate has that experience. They're a little light this month. Let us pair you up. Now we're doing that organically now, but
Yeah.
I'll tell you, it'll take 10 seconds when I can pull up their dashboards on both systems and be able to see exactly what's going on there. But so it'll also help us with if you do the 30,000-foot reporting on the firm, you can
Hmm.
see what your practice breakdowns look like, what your industry breakdown looks like. So you can see where you're weaker and where you'd like
Yep.
to shore up. And so that can really inform your recruiting and lateral partner strategy. And then on the sort of back end of that process, when that person is identified and everybody likes them and they're going to be brought in, lateral integration is crucial.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure everybody's seen the data about lateral failure rates and the absolutely astronomical cost, particularly as you get more and more senior with the
Mm-hmm.
partners that you're bringing into the firm. If they don't integrate, or they aren't successfully able to transport their business and get into the flow of your firm and your team, it's incredibly costly and time consuming and disappointing for everyone. And
Hmm.
so I see this as a sort of initial auto-generated roadmap for who they should meet, what clients or industries or work types they have in common with folks around the firm, not just in their offices, and then
Hmm.
you know allowing you to make those matches immediately so that you can start a heavily facilitated introduction and integration process that should
Yeah,
last,
onboarding.
the first several months, that the intensity should last for, the first several months that partner's there, to make sure they've met the right people, to make sure they're being brought into clients and client teams, where their experience is going to be relevant and a value addition to your existing clients, where they
Hmm.
have clients that we should be introducing our existing firm members to. That's going to be a lot less of a manual process. And
Yeah,
um,
haphazard and kind of,
well,
yeah.
I don't have to ask 10 partners for input. I can say,
Hmm.
hey, here's the data I have. Please review and give feedback, because
Yeah.
there will always be, you can't, you'll never get the information out of every single person's brain into your software. So there will
Right.
always be that, but you want to take that effort from your partner, your internal, your existing partners, to about 5%, where they can review
Mhm.
what your team is putting together and say, that looks right to me, or I would add such and such, or so, whatever the tweaks are to that before you deploy. But that process should be, you know, streamlined immediately by having
Mhm.
that data on hand.
Yeah, yeah, that is, definitely like when we originally started thinking about this, what that was one of the first, um, challenges that we consistently heard, which is the partner lateral integration, right? And the challenges associated with that. And actually, the perspective that you brought was actually a little bit different. Like what we were focusing on mostly was around, well, when we get them, how do we make sure that they're successful? But I think your perspective of, well, should we get them? I think that using that same information of saying, well, we should be able to leverage our people experience, what we've worked on to actually see if we do have gaps in that particular area. So that's an interesting perspective. I like that.
Yeah. We are able to also, the iridium piece being
Mhm.
part of this process, also allows not just to identify interests or areas of experience. I mean, that's great. But if you have a profitability problem in that
Mhm.
practice or with that lawyer, that's something you've got to solve before you start adding laterals or
Right.
merging with smaller firms, or any of those major moves. It's important to get that figured out before you go to the time and expense of starting to lateral partners in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good. So, the thing that I usually like to close with is just what are your, your plans for what's now 2021? Maybe even going 12 to 18 months. Where are you taking this?
Sure. I expect for the next 6 months or so, we'll be working on our build out and integrations, and doing some beta focused testing with some of our key stakeholders in these
Mhm.
various groups or practices. I'd like to see us doing regular dashboarding and reporting to our firm leadership on a more
Mhm.
regular basis than we do now, with a lot less manual input from our,
Mhm.
across teams. Um, I think the other thing this is going to allow me to transition into, we currently don't have a CRM that we're effectively using, and it was my strong position that we needed an experience manager before we needed a CRM, because
Mhm.
I like to tell the lawyers, like, I can have all the addresses in the world, but if we have nothing to send them, it doesn't matter. So
Right.
I'm hoping this will set us up. One of the things that we'll be working on is targeted mailing lists and client groups, and just identifying, like, clients or industries where we should be communicating the same information or similar information to all of them. That process is made a lot easier when you can fully understand what we're doing the most of, who has the real contacts there, and who should lead some of those efforts on the partner side. So this will be the framework for that implementation and program. And we have a Q3 plan to overhaul all of the firm materials, not just on the design but on the content side, because we're going to have far more detailed and cleaner information than we've had in the
Mhm.
past. So I'll be able to take that and create much more sophisticated and targeted materials that really talk about um, how we do it differently, what our approach is to certain kinds of matters, or clients, depending on what we're talking about. But I think that's going to give me another roadmap that I can pull straight out of the system to start with, and it really is a relief not to start blank page on those things.
Mhm.
Um, the other piece that we're already in the works with this, and I think I mentioned this earlier about rate setting, rate increases. This will help facilitate that process, because we're just going to have a lot more data to give clients.
Mhm.
Particularly, we have a lot of firm wide institutional clients that we have multiple stakeholders working with in various lines of business. Being able to have a full picture of the client, and then to be able to break into modules based on how the client's organized, or where we're servicing their business, is going to be excellent. I mean, we haven't been able to do that in a really effective way. I mean, I did do it this year, but it was a lot of math, a lot of spreadsheets, and we're just going to be able to have that instantly available to us in a way that we just haven't had in the past. So I'd like to thread that through all of the client service process as we move forward. And then 2022, 18 months from now, I hope to have some at least a handful of really productive and organized client teams.
So that's kind of the direction that you're going, is more having client teams.
I think for some of our larger institutional clients, it really just makes sense from a client service perspective to make sure that we're all rowing the same direction. They're getting the same messaging across the firm. We're producing reports and materials for them that all look the same and are using the same data set. And there's no kind of less interpretation from person to person. I also, it's gonna help me. It's going to help me identify and validate the who should be the relationship partners on certain clients. The other piece that's going to be, we are expanding, we are growing, we have added lots of new faces in the past year or two. So increasing that cross-selling ability will also allow me to work closely with one of the initiatives that I'm leading this year is a coaching program internally. This is where these will be the dashboards for my coaching program, right? When I have a coaching call, this will be the first thing I pull up.
Is that like coaching on business development best practices? Is that okay? Cool. So it's
and like one-on-one where I meet with partners, we do some strategic business development planning, business and business development planning for 6, 12, 18, 24 months, so that we understand what the markers are and where we're trying to be, where we are now, and also a sort of not a skills assessment, but a style assessment. Everybody, business development is bespoke. It's like a suit. You can buy off the rack, but it's never going to fit quite as well as if you have it tailored. And so it's great to do a firm-wide training and say you should all be creating content and calling your clients. But when I get face to face with the partner and say, okay, last meeting we talked about those 25 clients we wanted to touch base with in the last 2 weeks. Like, how did that go? What did we do? What information can I give you that's going to be helpful in your further discussions? So that's going to be invaluable to me.
That's good. Well, that's exciting. So it's good. It sounds like 2021 is going to be super busy.
Yeah.
Crazy already.
Yeah. I can't believe. I mean, we're like almost through our first quarter, so lots to do, and but all really exciting stuff. And I'm really pleased that we were able to bring Icon on board. It's a game changer for me, frankly. So my life will be easier. My team's life we will produce better content, better materials, be more engaged, and be able to do it more quickly in a really cost-effective way. So it's exciting.
Well, yeah, it is. And we appreciate time you've spent. I know we started talking a long time ago.
I was looking at the date on that first chat we had. So yeah, it's definitely been in the works. And I guess that's another piece to the marketing leaders out there. This buy-in can take time. It's worth spending the time to educate firm leadership about why this is important, what we're going to do with it, what savings you have sort of on the staffing side, and the time value of money for getting your lawyers these materials that are higher quality, produce faster, they look better, they're more bespoke to the clients. All of that goes a long way, and I do think we're going to see ROI pretty immediately from these efforts. So it can take a long time to get the go ahead and get things up and running, but it's a worthwhile effort. And I would always be happy to talk to any person in a similar situation who is pitching this.
So that's actually brings up a good closing. How should folks reach out to you? Should they email you? Is there?
Yeah, that would be great. My email is kalisha.crawford@ropers.com. And like most of you, I'm sure I'm pretty actively on my email on a
Hmm.
daily basis, and I really am happy um, to do some thought sharing. I've talked to a couple mid-sized law firm marketing and business development leaders already about um, how this works and why it
Yeah.
works, and I've also talked to a couple people from larger firms where they have one piece and not the other, and how do they fit together, and what more advanced initiatives can we take on if we have multiple pieces of the puzzle together. So yeah, I'm always pleased to talk about that. It definitely was a one woman campaign for me. So but I will
You
credit to my
fought the
firm
fight.
leadership. Yeah, they,
Yeah.
firms understand, particularly in the mid market, which is contracting and shifting and um, competitive. There,
Hmm.
you've got to stay innovative. You have to be able to deliver this high value information and service to your clients, and this is just a huge support pillar for that effort.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking some time today. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
And
thanks for having me.
yeah, looking forward to continue working with you, and have a good rest of your afternoon.